This is the E-commerce Edge podcast with your host, Jason Greenwood. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the E-commerce Edge podcast. I have another incredible guest lined up for you today, but before we get into our discussion, I would love to recommend that you go to your favorite podcast engine of choice and go ahead and like, and hopefully, if you find our content valuable, you'll share it with your friends, and people see all the shares, we see all the comments, and we super appreciate your help getting the word out about our back catalog of nearly 500 incredible episodes. But without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome DMITRY NEKRASOV from Jetmetrics. Welcome, DMITRY.
Hello, everyone. Hi, the e-commerce Edge listeners, and thank you, Jason, for inviting me. Glad to be here.
Look, it's great to have you here with me for the ride today. You were saying the last time we spoke before we went on air, in a previous conversation we had, that you were in transit to Mauritius. You were about ready to leave on a trip to Mauritius, and you've now arrived there, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's some kind of workation. So we work here and live here and sometimes relax here. Mauritius is a very beautiful place, and you have to visit this island. It's somewhere in Indian Ocean near Madagascar and Reunion Island, and actually here you can find the third biggest coral reef in the whole world. A lot of fish, a lot of whales. Last Saturday we swam with the whales and dolphins, and that was amazing. A lot of mountains, waterfalls, and forests. So yeah, this is like a paradise. But at the same time, it's not Southeast Asia, so there aren't many bikes here, and the roads are amazing, and you can find all necessary infrastructure like clinics, like malls, etc., etc. So it's like a mix of Europe and Africa with the tropics. Yeah, it's a great place.
Sounds incredible. My wife and I are both qualified scuba divers, and I've got my open water and my advanced certification. So maybe we'll come down there. I didn't realize that Mauritius was so famous for diving. A coworker, when I used to work inside of a brand, she was from Reunion Island,
Yeah.
and so I didn't really know much about Mauritius until you started to share with me about all of the amazing things about the island. So yeah, I'll have to take my wife down there at some stage, and we'll have to do some scuba diving on the reef there. It sounds incredible.
But try to avoid Reunion Island, especially for scuba diving, because there isn't a coral reef there, but it's a very dangerous place because there are a lot of shark attacks. It's a much more dangerous place than Hawaii or Australia and South Africa in terms of shark accidents.
Wow. But Mauritius, I'm guessing that there's a lot of diving that happens around Mauritius.
Yeah, a lot of diving and more safer, of course.
Dive into a little bit about how you came to be in this space. Before we talk about Jetmetrics, how did you even come to be interested in or involved in this wonderful world we call e-commerce?
Actually, I'm from analytics field, basically. I started my career in analytics at 2014. I worked in one FMCG regional company, and my responsibility was trying to forecast and predict the weekend sales of some bargain promotions. That was very mathematically and pretty theoretical job. We used neural networks and regression models. And that was nice. That was a great starting point. But when I went to my second job, I faced with completely different challenges because I implemented AI analytics dashboards instead of flat reports and spreadsheets. And the main concern was about how to take actions based on these reports, based on these dashboards. For example, we built the dashboard, we provide it to the management so that they can rely on this data on their decisions. And it was a very common situation when they saw the dashboard, look at the dashboard, and they asked, what should we do with all this data? And that was amazing. That was a great insight for me, because that's how I realized that the last mile of analytics is much more important than previous stages. So, for example, you can conduct a big amount of work in terms of collecting data, processing data, etc., and visualizing data, of course. But if you fail in last mile, so all work will be useless. Yeah. And after that, I decided to found my own agency. I decided to work by myself, and that's where I started to work in e-commerce field, because some of our clients, when we implemented the analytics, dashboards, Power BI, Quick, and Looker Studio, most of our customers were in e-commerce field. Yeah, so that's how I knew about this great industry and knew all this knowledge.
Wow, what an incredible journey. And you've been involved directly with Jetmetrics, CEO, Jetmetrics. You've been doing this for over 3 years. And, you were CEO of Datmark as well for 6 years.
Yeah.
And so and so obviously during that 6 year window, you were developing custom analytics products and solutions, as you said, using and leveraging Power BI, but really creating custom analytic solutions. But like I consider that like a bespoke. Those are more bespoke type of solutions as opposed to out of the box solutions that people could just plug in and run with and operate with. And it seems to me that you identified a challenge throughout that process, which is that you can have all the data in the world. They can, operationalize the findings. It feels more like an ego stroke or a box ticking exercise than something that's actually going to benefit the business. Now, the challenge, I suppose, with trying to build something like you're building at Jetmetrics is the fact that this industry of e-commerce is swamped with technology that purports or pitches or sells itself on the ability to provide actionable or easy analytics,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if you go to the Shopify app store right now, and I did it before we jumped on our call, and if you just type in the word analytics in the Shopify app store, there's 2,592 apps that have or purport to do something with analytics, 108 pages of results. So this industry is insanely competitive.
Yeah.
You've got platforms that focus on MTA, multi-touch attribution analytics. You've got the triple whales and the north beams. Then you have MMM analytics platforms that try to do some form of marketing mix modeling, to where, okay, you pull a lever over here and you're trying to figure out what's the correlation between my marketing spend and my results. And a lot of brands, they don't really even necessarily understand their unit economics. They don't understand incremental revenue. They don't understand revenue contribution, margin contribution. And they really struggle to connect the dots between catalog performance and individual customer performance, and to connect those two dots together,
Yeah.
right? And they definitely struggle to do that by channel, whether that be by transactional channel and or by marketing channel. And so when you decided to start Jetmetrics it this way, and I think we need to build something unique to tackle this challenge.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for this question. Actually, at the end of 2021, me and my teammate Maria, she was our team lead of analytics. We decided to start our own product. We decided to build our own product for e-commerce. So we haven't know about some specific features, but first of all, we started to talk with the potential customers and we in analytics field, and we asked them maybe general questions, trying to find some problem areas in their jobs. and with their interactions with data. We asked decision makers only, not analysts, because analytics, it's very difficult industry and very difficult subject. Most of products built by analysts for analysts, but not for decision makers. And most of decision makers are struggling trying to extract some, trying to find inside needle in the data haystack. We have had a lot of product hypotheses, and our main goal was to make analytics more simple and actionable, because of course action is the most important thing and the most important result of any analytics. And one of our hypotheses was about what if users could see their online store's metrics not like a separate elements in dashboard, because it's a very common situation and we can find a lot of products in the Shopify app store that just collecting data from Shopify or any other data source and just calculating and visualizing. It's not very interesting, and we decided to test the hypothesis about how to create the metrics map, where you can see how metrics impact on each other, how they interconnected. And we spent maybe 2 weeks describing this, our first metrics map, and we posted it. I remember it was a Friday. We posted it on LinkedIn, our PDF with 146 metrics in one screen, and that was extremely successful. We received 2.7 millions of impressions, 9,000 requests, a lot of visitors on our website, and not several, but of course dozens of users to our wait list. From this point, we decided to build our product this way. We're trying to create maybe some new way to interact with analytics, to consume the analytics for decision makers. Because as I mentioned before, it's not very interesting and useful and actionable. Just looking at your graphs and tables and maybe some metrics, it's not very actionable. We trying to map your crucial metrics like a structure with a hierarchy, with the dependencies, where you can see how one metric interact with each other, and you can drill down to each metric and see their metric store. For example, with some dimensions, historical data, ideas to growth, etc., etc. So that's the main idea of Jetmetrics.
And I love the fact that you have this interact. Now, in all transparency, I've never used Jetmetrics before, so I'm going by the website, some of the visuals, some of the screenshots, and some of the reports that you've shown. And what I like is the fact that this is very visual and interactive is kind of the way I would describe Jetmetrics based on what I'm seeing here in terms of screenshots. And for example, I like the fact that you seem to be able to not only visualize but also verbally describe both cause and effect, right? So for example, it says, the repeat sales metric, which is clickable, and you can drill down into this metric, fell, for example, in this case, 9% because the AOV, average order value metric, fell 14%. If the repeat sales metric had not fallen, you would have made $744 more. And you can drill down in that. You can watch it. You can graph it over time. You see the category performance. You see individual product performance. But then you also have this graphical map, right, where you've got this sales percentage, and you've also got the total sales figure at the top of the map. But then you also show in basically almost like a cascading diagram format what contributed new customer AOV. Then you break that down into the total figure and percentage, and whether it's up or down over the period. And so the fact they're saying, okay, cool, let's just you with a headline which looks great. If I want to present to my school, we're up 10% on revenue this, but bosses usually want to know the why, not just the what. They want to know the why, and they want to know the how, and they want to know if the how is repeatable or not. And so I feel like these are 2 or 3 areas where you have really tried to make this. This is going to sound bad, but you almost want to dumb it down to the point where you don't need to have a data scientist to be able to take action within your business based on this data.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need data scientists just to collect and calculate and visualize your basic metrics and describing the possible reasons of root causes of metrics outliers. Yeah, of course, we can provide it just with our product. And yeah, for example, when your management, when your decision makers will see our interface, they can immediately understand this metric fell down because of this one and this one. They can drill down into each metric and see what's going on from different points of view, by product, by categories, etc., etc. Yeah, that will be very quick.
And does the platform take into account or try to help brands visualize things like, okay, this metric was influenced by the discounting that you did get during the month. So you discounted this product or these products, you discounted this category. These products are like in your top 10% most purchased products through the month, but because they were discounted for 21 days out of 30, bring in calculations from other systems other than the commerce system, like our marketing platforms, like our customer service technology, which will report on numbers of tickets, cost, not only cost of acquisition, but cost of service. Are we trying to bring in more data sources that will influence these metrics other than just direct commerce metrics?
It's a great question. Actually, of course, in the future we will add a lot of integrations for e-commerce sellers, but we will start with the Shopify integration only. But of course, in close future, we will add Klaviyo, Google Analytics, maybe WooCommerce, BigCommerce, etc. So if we will find this data about discounts in Shopify stores, of course, we can collect and calculate and visualize it, and we can describe some outliers with these discounts, or people or users can see what's going on because, for example, your discount campaign was unsuccessful.
And so it sounds like you are trying to, and you correct me if I'm wrong
Yeah.
here, ranges for CLV. We have standard ranges for category performance, product performance, margin performance, all these different metrics. And I see from your website that you regularly track over 1,100 specific performance metrics for e-commerce stores. And I'm guessing that as you track these metrics over time, it is the anomalies that oftentimes influence overall performance more than anything else. It is the standout changes in the trend that you want to identify, and you want to try to link it to some sort of behavior that the brand took or their customers took that caused that aberration in the data, right? But you have to, it's impossible. It's impossible to do that. So what we want to do is we want to look at the standout changes within metrics over time. Is that how you would describe your platform, as being able to identify the cause and effect of the aberrations more than anything else?
Actually, we are going to provide not all of the metrics, not hundreds, but we will provide the picture where you can see just up to 20 metrics in one screen, but they will be interconnected. But for example, you can switch metrics maps with different key metrics just to understand metrics map of total sales, of repeat customers, or another metrics map with LTV or AOV. Of course, people don't need too many metrics. They need only maybe some of them, maybe just up to 10, to understand what's going on and where they have problems. So, for example, when we conduct our customer development interviews, one of the main problems, one of the main concerns of our potential customers, analytics users, etc., was struggling to to focus that really matters right now, because you have a lot of metrics, you have a lot of reports and diagrams, etc. But the difficult part is to understand what's important right now, where you should focus on. Of course, we will provide the possibility to see the trends and changes, compare with the previous period or with the same period last year. There are different types of analyzed changes, but with this approach, you can understand where your red areas, where the problems are. So that's what we are going to do.
And when you were doing these customer interviews, I'm guessing that many customers or design partners, as it's often called in the industry, when you're working with new prospects that are helping you to develop your product to make it relevant and useful to them, I'm guessing that if I was in their shoes and I was talking to you and I was trying to grow either a startup brand or, even if I was a few years old, but I kind of felt like I had hit a threshold, a peak, and I was trying to find new levers to pull in my business, I would probably tell you or ask you to say, actually, just give me a list of actions to take. In other words, just tell me what to do. In fact, I don't even necessarily want to see the bloody metrics. I don't necessarily even want to visualize the bloody metrics. Just tell me what to do based on those metrics. Just tell me the next best action I can take as a brand owner, as an e-commerce store owner. Just tell me what I need to do next to improve my business. Where is the low action on right now to help improve my business? Did any of your design partners suggest that as an approach, the platform and the way that it shows data?
Yeah, actually, our customers, our users, divided by two categories. The first category really want to see specific actions, what they should do. They don't want to explore the metrics, graphs, etc. They just want to understand the possible action, the list of possible actions and possible impacts when they will implement. But the second one, ready to explore metrics and graphs by themselves. And there are, of course, big difference between them, between both categories. The main concern of providing specific recommendations and suggestions that they often cannot take into account some external factors and some factors that you cannot measure. So, for example, business model or maybe specific events, etc., etc. And many of our users told us that they do not trust 100% to any AI recommendations. They will validate it. That's why we decided to provide not recommendations to actions that you can directly take into account, but brainstorming ideas. So, for example, when you see that your metric goes down, you can see the possible reasons, you can see the impact on your sales because of this decrease, and you can see the list of brainstorming ideas. Probably this metric fell down because of this, and that's what you should do. This is a great starting point for discussion with your teammates, but this is not the ready to use recipe of any actions.
That's another very good point. So what if I, as a brand, because every brand has slightly different goals depending on where they are at in their growth life cycle. Sometimes it's in the first maybe 12, 24 months, maybe it's customer acquisition at all costs. Then maybe after 24 months, they start to focus on retention, customer lifetime value, as opposed to focusing on as much, say, for example, on AOV and new customer acquisition. They sort of change gears a little bit, and they maybe take the foot a little bit off the accelerator of acquisition, and they try to reduce their cost of customer acquisition from year 2 onwards, and they really start to try to increase the LTV of existing relationships. And plus, they oftentimes will, from say, at least 1 to 2 years in, they start to then be able to build a picture of their most valuable customer cohorts to the business and the behaviors that they take that make them valuable to the business. And then what they can do from there is they can start to create lookalike audiences from those best cohorts that then they can send off to Meta and Google and even Amazon to a degree. And so I guess for me, because the goals of the business change over time, also their expectations around margin, for example, can change over time. So they might say, look, for the first 12 months, our focus is on kind of growth at all costs, right? We're not worried too much about profit margins. We're not worried too much about revenue. We are worried about our growth rate for the first 12, 24 months, for example. And so it feels like if I could tell Jetmetrics, okay, this is my goal. My goal is new customer acquisition, or my goal is revenue growth, or my goal is profit margin growth, or my goal is catalog expansion. To where I want to de-risk my dependence on only a few SKUs for most of my revenue, to broadening my revenue sources, right? And so as those goals change, so do the metrics that I'm most concerned about, and therefore the recommendations that will be made to me based on what my goal is at that point in time. And so when you're working with your customers, have any of them said, hey, I would like to be able to tell you what my goal is? Is that something that is important to your customers?
Yeah, exactly. This is what's really important to our customers. But we are going to provide the possibility to choose the set of metric maps based on your goals, and not just generating it like on air. So, for example, for different stages of company's growth and maybe for different business models and industries, you can just choose from catalog the set of metrics maps. So, for example, if you are going to focus on retention and loyalty and increasing LTV, here are maybe 3 or 4 metrics maps with the 3 or 4 key metrics that you should track. So take it, track it, and act with it. Yeah, but your idea about generating based on maybe just plain text description and queries sounds very interesting.
Yeah, I just think that with multimodal AI now and the way that it can work across input plain language description, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to imagine, let's say I was a relatively small brand, but let's just say hypothetically that I had a family member that was a data scientist, right? And so I could access them for free. Like they were just a family member or a family friend, and they were willing to come in and look at my business, and they were willing to give me some advice. They were willing to look at some of my data. Maybe they were willing to create some custom dashboards. And let's say hypothetically it had zero cost to my business. The first thing I think that any good data scientist would ask before they went off and started to try to analyze the data is, were plain text descriptions of what we're trying to look for as the needle in the haystack. It feels like converting that into dynamic metric maps, to use your language, the dynamic metric maps to use that's the language you use to describe these visualizations of the data that contributes to a specific outcome. It feels like being able to dynamically produce a metric map based on a plain text description of what I'm trying to do. It feels like that's achievable, whereas maybe even a year ago, that might not have been achievable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, there are a lot of potential opportunities how to use AI and with a plain text description. Actually, that AI is one of the most important factors to boost any industry, and especially analytics and e-commerce industry. And of course, we will add a lot of features based on AI in future, and generating metrics maps based on your goals written that you can write in a plain text description sounds very interesting. Besides of this idea, we found out that for some users it can be pretty difficult. Now we're testing our own Jetmetrics GPT. We downloaded inside all our knowledge, our experience, all our metrics maps, driver trees, guides, etc., and we sometimes we show to our potential users. And one of the main concerns that they have is difficulties with the queries, with the prompts. They just actually don't. They often just don't know what they should ask about their metrics, their data, their opportunities. And it's not very comfortable for users to put all the responsibility to create some queries on your users. So it can be very challenging, but of course some of ideas sounds very exciting, and we will add more and more AI features. Now we started with the brainstorming ideas, but I'm pretty sure that our product very soon won't be like a static. They will be like completely customizable for a specific user, for a specific company, or maybe agency, for any industry, etc. That's the future. That's the future.
Yeah, and I think to your point, even if I don't know the questions to ask AI, if I could be prompted by questions from the AI to start off with, okay, cool. What is your primary goal? A list of, say, 3, 4, 5 questions that the prompt could ask me to start off with, and give examples. So what is your primary goal? Is it revenue growth? Is it profit growth? Is it catalog expansion? Is it customer acquisition, new customer acquisition? Is it customer retention? Is it AOV, increasing AOV? Is it increasing LTV? Like, it could have a list of examples for each question that I could respond with as a focus for my metric map, right? And so I understand exactly what you mean, which is that people just want answers as opposed to having to think about how can I prompt the AI to give me meaningful answers back. I feel like it could be a two-way conversation initiated by the AI, that it could lead the question. It could actually prompt me to give it answers, so that it knows what to focus on in the way that it's presenting the data. So I feel like definitely that is going to be an area where you guys can differentiate, where you can stand out, and where you can make it the platform even more user friendly for people that just they don't have a data science degree. They don't have an analytics background. They don't experience in this space. Maybe the simpler we can make this level of analysis, like in their heart. Some businesses do. Some businesses are totally financially led, and they've got a CFO, or they've got a financial controller, or they've got somebody in the business that like they're a guru with the numbers, and they can provide really good guidance to the leadership of the business. But I would say they're in the minority in my experience. They're not in the majority. And as a result of that, I think the more accessible we can make top tier analytics input to a business, the better most of these businesses will automatically be by definition.
Yeah, it's a great thought. And what should I add?
Yeah, no, it's a great conversation, and I think you're well on the road. And I think the great thing is you've got the underlying platform, you've got the
Yeah.
base to be able to build AI on top of. That's the great thing, is that you have to be able to have the core. It's almost, I think of it almost like a pyramid,
Yeah.
right? We want to get to this. That we want to get to the top of the pyramid, which is operating in a fully informed
Mhm.
way. And we want to be fully data led, right? But the foundation at the bottom of the pyramid is the raw data. Then we build on top of that, we build the extraction, the ETL
Mhm.
aspect of data analysis. We've got to extract, we've got to transform, we've got to load it into some sort of visualization engine. We've got to do the parsing of the data, we've got to do the time analysis of the data. The comparative is going to be highly performant because it has the raw material it needs to be able to give wise answers and suggestions back to the user. So I think you're absolutely well on the road. What if we were to look out, 6, maybe 12, maybe 18 months from now? What are the key priorities for you to add to the platform, or is there anything your customers are asking for today that you don't yet do in the platform that's like high on your radar over the next, say, 6, 12, 18
Mhm.
months?
Actually, we are on the way to our second MVP, and we are going to launch it finally maybe in 2 weeks. So we have just minor issues with the verification in Shopify App Store. So our previous MVP we tested with several of our potential customers in a close testing mode. But our main plan, of course, is to launch in the next few weeks and collect a lot of feedback, because we have a large backlog. We have large amount of ideas from our customers, from our users, and we have a lot of ideas from our own. And our main goal, of course, is to find product market fit as soon as we can. And after that, we are going to scale it and increase our engineering team. So that's the plan. Because now we have a great opportunity to implement AI technology, because it becomes more and more cheaper than ever, and of course we have to use it in our product. Yeah, that's the plan.
Love it. And how do you guys make your money? Your SaaS platform. So I'm guessing that you've got some sort of a subscription model for your platform. Is it based on number of metrics? Is it based on number of users? Is it based on how many connections or platforms you integrate with? How do you structure your pricing, and how do you guys make your
We're
money?
going to charge users, companies, based on their monthly, based on their amount of orders. The more you sell, the more you pay. The more we have to spend to process and to collect and to transform and visualize your data. And we're going to be not very expensive, of course, at the first time. And we aren't going to charge for every user, because it's a very common situation when, for example, one company, one account, one store can be connected with several people from agency and from different departments, and it's okay. So we just want to grow our users, and we are going to wait for them. Everybody can start with a lower tiers of pricing tariffs, and we are going to grow with our customers.
And so, what would a brand expect to pay roughly if they were doing, say, 1,000 orders a month? What kind of pricing tier would they roughly fall into?
For this amount of orders, we are going to charge approximately from $100 to $100 per month. But we still thinking, and we analyzing the feedback from our customers. But the range will be something like this.
Okay, makes complete sense. And so, your app will be available in the App Store sometime within the next couple of
Yes,
weeks?
yes, in Shopify App Store we are going to launch, so everybody can look at this and try and to connect their Shopify stores. Yeah.
Love it. Amazing. And if people want to get a hold of you, I'll drop your LinkedIn link into the show notes. I'll drop the Jetmetrics link into the show notes as well. Other than that, if people want to speak to you about Jetmetrics, find out more, talk to you about the platform and how it works, what's the best way to get a hold?
LinkedIn profile, email, we are open to discuss with any customers or just users. So we would like to share our ideas and to collect any feedback. We are open to this.
Love it. Amazing. Now, as we come down to the end of our time together, this is where the point where I get to flip the script. I get to hand the microphone over to you. I get to let you ask me one question, any question you like, can be personal or professional. So, Dmitry Nekrasov from Jetmetrics, what is your question for me today?
Do you think what should be our main advantages for e-commerce field, for e-commerce industry? Because this industry very well, and you talked with a lot of users, a lot of merchants, etc. And what should be, if we are talking about just one feature, one killer feature? It would be great if you can share it with us, experienced expert.
Yeah, I think I go back to what I said maybe 20 minutes ago, which is most e-commerce brands, especially when they are young and when they are either startup or within, say, the first 24 months of their existence, the founders are usually wearing 10 different hats, right? They're trying to do marketing, they're trying to do branding, they're trying to do sourcing, they're trying to do all the tech, they're trying to establish their website, they're trying to, integrate it with an accounting platform, they're trying to do 100 different things, and they're trying to figure out how to even stay alive through that first initial 12, 24, 36-month period. And so I think anything that makes it easier for them to know what levers to pull and to have a dialogue with the system, because, like, for example, I think about Xero, the accounting platform that I use in my business,
Yeah.
right? I think it's ridiculous, the fact that when I log in today, I've got to try to find a link in the menu to do the different actions I want to do. I would like to just be able to speak with the software. I would like to be able to just tell it what I want to do. Okay, I want to do my bank reconciliation. Okay, cool. That links to this. That links to this. This links to this. Cool. I would like to be able to just tell the software what I want to do, and then it just does it. And I think that's where we will eventually get to, where we're using natural language, and I think that's where we're ultimately going to get to.
Cool. It's a very interesting point of view. Yeah. Thank you, Jason.
Are you a B2B or D2C e-commerce merchant? Then head over to greenwoodconsulting.net to learn how we can help you scale your business.